What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down every single route on the route tree versus different coverage looks. So we're going to be going over the routes versus, maybe the hardest defensive look to run the route. Like, for example, a 5-yard out versus outside leverage press, or like maybe a post route where the DB's inside shade at 8 yards. So we're going to be going over that situation for every single route. So I hope this video helps you guys out, and I hope it can give you some value. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to know the things you should do on a day-to-day basis to improve your route running, your speed, everything in the gym and on the field that wide receivers can do, check out our 4-week wide receiver ultimate training schedule in that link in the description below. So if you guys want over 100 plus wide receiver gym and field drills that you could do with sets and reps, check out that link below, fellas. You'll get a ton of value out of it. Let's get started. So now, first route we're going to be talking about is a 5-yard hitch route. So that's a 0 on the route tree. Now, everybody has trouble with this route when it's against inside shade coverage, right? So let's play this thing full speed and then we'll break it down. So CeeDee Lamb attacks his leverage, pushes to the outside shoulder, and then snaps this thing right off to win on that hitch. That is exactly how you want to do it. So when I have that inside shade look and I have to run a hitch, obviously I'm probably not going to be able to stack the guy. A lot of people think that in every single route situation, you want to stack the defender. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes you want to try to attack his outside shoulder, get him to open up his hips so we can slip underneath. That is the main key. Sometimes we have to slip underneath. Sometimes we have to stack. So when I have this hitch route and he's inside shade, most importantly, I have to attack his leverage. I have to close the distance with him so he does not have space to recover on this route. If CeeDee Lamb, so let's say here, this DB's got maybe about a yard of cushion. Let's see CeeDee Lamb just takes off and ran to the outside and snap down. Even if we got that DB to bite, there is way too big of a gap between the two of us for us to get separation. He will have space to recover on the ball. We want to give him no space. I want to try to be hip to hip with him when I'm running this route. So he gets up into his leverage, attacks him, closes the space, and then he pushes up vertical, head down. On this hitch route versus inside shade, you have to make sure that we are selling fade. So what does it come down to selling fade? You got to make sure that we're running fast. We have to make sure that my hips and shoulders are committed to the fade. I am not rounding my shoulder and turning my hip to the inside before I break, and I have to run in full stride. If I could do all of those things and attack the outside shoulder of that DB, make sure I'm closing space, and I could snap down right on a dime, that will get me separation on that hitch route versus inside shade. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. That's a great job by CeeDee Lamb setting up this hitch route, closing the space with this DB, and then winning to get separation. So now, next route we're going to talk about is what I mentioned in the beginning of this is going to be a 5-yard out. So this is a 1 on the route tree, right? So you could consider it like a flat, some people consider it a 5-yard out, whatever it is. But everybody struggles with this 5-yard out when we have outside shade man coverage and they're maybe sitting right at 5, or even when they're in press. So you want to think of it as probably, I would say, the polar opposite of a hitch route versus this inside shade look. So that's why I included this second after the CeeDee Lamb clip, because now instead of you maybe attacking his leverage, squaring him up, you would want to threaten his inside shoulder. So whether that's going at the inside shoulder hard, getting him to flip his hips, or that's going to the inside shoulder and giving a hard fake to the inside, either way would be correct. So we're looking at this route from Elijah Moore. So he comes out and gives that hard crossover to the outside shoulder to win on that out route. That is textbook of what you would want to do here. Now, a lot of people automatically think anytime that there's like off coverage, right? Like this, and what I mean by off coverage is where the DB's got some cushion. He's got maybe 2 to 3 yards. Sometimes it could be 7 or 8 yards, whatever it might be. A lot of people think that you always want to attack the DB's leverage and try to square him up, quote unquote. Like you want to attack his midline, for example, that line that goes down the middle of his body. Now, in this situation, you wouldn't want to do that. Here's why. Because if you have to run an out route, what does the QB need on an out route? He needs space to throw you open, right? So this DB's lined up outside leverage. So imagine if he would have tried to attack his leverage to the outside. The sole goal of this DB being outside leverage is to protect his leverage. So what he would do is he would keep his leverage. If you would attack his leverage and try to square him up, he would keep his leverage. And so guess what? You'd break off in front of him, cutting down the space the quarterback has, and this DB would be right on your hip. So you have to keep space for the QB to lead you open. That is why you attack the inside shoulder, and that is what's more likely to get the DB to bite. You can't just attack his leverage and try to run in front of him. A good, disciplined DB will not let that happen. A bad DB, okay, fine, but I'm not trying to get you ready for a bad DB. I'm trying to get you ready for a DB who's talented. So you see how Moore, he closes the space, number one. We talked about that with that hitch route. Anytime, we got to make sure that we are closing space. That doesn't mean attacking leverage. That just means closing the cushion, whether that's at his inside shoulder, outside shoulder, or his midline. So he attacks him, closes the distance, and then he does a hard fake to the inside. Because now that fake can get him to jump, especially if we know how to sell it, especially if my cut leg steps outside, hips and shoulders actually sell the inside. That can get me some space, but now I actually have room to accelerate out of the break. That is textbook right there, and that is how you would run that 5-yard out. So that's that one on that route tree. Again, it's probably the hardest coverage look we'll face against that. Outside shade sitting right at 5. Let's play this full speed again one more time. Great job using that crossover move and attacking the inside shoulder. All right, so next example here. This is going to be a slant route. So this is a 2 on the route tree. Now, when I'm running a slant route and this DB's lined up inside shape, how you can tell he's inside shape, look at his foot and look where the numbers are. Look at this wide receiver's foot. He's to the inside, or he's, to the outside of the numbers. So this DB's shaded a little bit to the inside. Now, this is the main thing like we talked about in the last 2 clips. This is why I included this third. If there's a cushion there, you have to close the cushion. No different than a hitch route, fellas, when we have this look. So he's about 2 to 3 yards off inside shape. I got to run a slant. Let's play this thing full speed. So he closes space, then he works to this thing we call a diamond release. So this is where a lot of people struggle because a lot of people, so inside shade 2 to 3 yards off on the slant, they'll do 2 mistakes. First one, easiest fix possible. They will try to square up the DB. And we know this from the 5-yard out that we talked about. When you attack a DB's leverage, a disciplined DB, what's he going to do? He's going to keep his leverage, right? You attack him, you try to square him up, he's just going to weave or motor to the inside. So if you try to attack him and then just run the slant, you're running right into him and you're screwing up the spacing of the play. Because let's say, for example, you're the outside receiver, but you also have a slot receiver who's running like a flat route, and you try to square him up and run in front, you're going to run into each other or collision with another defender, which takes you both out of the play. So you have to keep spacing, but you also have to know how to get separation. Now, what a lot of people know to do is, I'm going to do something called the diamond release, which is where you take 3 steps to the outside shoulder of the DB, trying to get his hips to flip. But if you were to come off, now you see how when he does this diamond release, he closes space first, and then he goes outside for 3 steps. Imagine if he made this break, but he was maybe a yard over here. Off the line, he just went straight to the diamond. And there was about a yard or 2 between him and the DB. Even if we got that DB to open up his hips, just like the hitch route we were talking about, you still have to run the slant, and you are still getting the ball in probably the exact same spot on the field. So guess what? That big cushion that you would have gives the DB time to open up and recover. He could take a better angle than we have on the ball and make a play. So we have to make sure that we get into his cushion. I have to close the space first. So close the space, make him uncomfortable. Then I go to the diamond so I can be hip to hip with him, swat him by, and now when he tries to recover, he doesn't have the space to recover. I have the better angle on the slant. So that is textbook, fellas. So the 2 on the route tree is going to be this slant, and you have to make sure if it's inside shade 2 to 3 off, let's close the distance. If he were just pressed right here, you would just go. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Olave getting into the cushion and then winning on that slant. All right, so now 3 on the route tree is going to be a comeback. So how would you guys run a comeback with an outside release when this DB's lined up inside shade? Now, here's the thing about a comeback, fellas. You can't restack on a comeback. The whole reason why is because that DB will probably run into you. Now, that's something that we get asked a lot, and that's why I wanted to address it with this video. So we're looking at this rider from CeeDee Lamb. So he does this little hesitation skip, accelerates, and then snaps this thing off, and obviously is able to get a lot of separation. So let's talk about it, right? So he does this little like hezzy move right there to probably sell vertical. Maybe he's done that a couple times. But again, on a comeback route, when you have inside shade, you could do one of 2 things. You could do something like this, where you kind of hesitate to get his feet to stop, and then we accelerate. Or you could do what? He's inside shade. You could attack his leverage and try to threaten him inside to move him and then take the outside release. But the main thing is you just do not want to restack. You want to keep this DB exactly where CeeDee Lamb kept this DB, and that's right on his inside hip. You could be winning the foot race, if you will. You could be winning on the fade, but please do not try to stack directly over the top of him. Because if you stack directly over the top and you break down and you snap down, what's he going to do? He's going to run right into you. So just make sure that you keep him on your inside hip, even if you're a couple steps ahead of him. So when you snap off, you actually have some space and some leverage to accelerate back to the ball. Okay, so now what comes down to getting separation on this? When I get a DB to open up, and it's just like the hitch route, fellas, to be honest with you, it's just a longer version of it. Trust me, fellas, it's not that complicated when it comes to running routes and it comes to making breaks. A lot of it's the same concepts. It's just deeper down the field and maybe a different leverage or a different coverage from the DB. So when we go here and we do this little hesitation skip and we accelerate up into the route, it's all about doing what? Selling fade. On a comeback route against zone, against man, against head up, against inside shade, you have to sell vertical. You have to make sure that your pad level is good. You have to make sure that everything about this route looks like a 9. And that's why CeeDee Lamb does this peek back move that we talk about. He starts running full speed. He's got a good pad level. He starts peeking back to get this DB to look for the ball. And then guess what? I can put the brakes on with my hips, and that's what gets me to win on this route. So make sure, fellas, on a comeback route against press, we are not restacking. We're trying to keep him right on my inside hip. That is a 3 on the route tree. That is that comeback route. Textbook example here from CeeDee Lamb. So now, we're going to talk about a curl route versus inside shade, maybe about a yard or 2 off. So pretty much, fellas, it's the exact same thing. It is the exact same thing as that hitch, as that slant, as maybe even the comeback, to be honest with you. It's about taking what the DB gives you. A lot of people ask me when we come up with routes, or not when we come up with routes, but when we're talking about routes is, hey, coach, what's the best release for like a post route? What's the best release for a curl route, which is what we're looking at right now, 4 on the route tree. What's the best release for a curl route? It doesn't matter. It matters what the DB's giving you. What's his leverage? How's he playing you? Is he head up? Is he off? That's what dictates your plan, not the specific route. The routes may differ, but like the DB's leverage is what dictates, the different release you choose, the different move you choose. It's all based on the DB. So let's play this thing full speed. So he attacks DB's leverage, pushes vertical, hip drop, in and out, winning on this curl route. That is exactly what you want. Now, one thing I would say about the curl route, it's very similar because we have to come back to the ball, right? Do you think you want to restack? No, you would want to keep this DB, same idea, right on that inside hit. Now, you see how there's a big gap between the two of them? I personally do not like that. Here's why. And the gap comes from this. The gap comes from when he made this release, he attacked him, but he didn't get into his leverage. He went kind of lateral with his leverage. So when he bursted off the line, there was a very wide angle that he took because he went lateral off the line. What he should have done is he maybe should have attacked him a little bit more, got into his frame, so when he bursted up off this release, he could be hip to hip with him rather than wide angle, giving this guy time to recover at the top. But the only reason this worked is because the same reason the hitch works, the same reason the comeback works. What did he do? He sold vertical, fellas. When it comes to getting open on probably 99% of your routes, it comes down to selling vertical. So he comes off here, you see full stride, head down, good pad level, hip drop. And that hip drop puts the brakes on and allows him to make that play coming back to the ball. Now, just make sure, fellas, we are tight, hip to hip, and do not restack on this hitch, on this. Do not restack on that hitch, on that curl, and on that comeback. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. That's a great example of how you guys can run a curl route versus that inside shade look and not force the inside release. It's all based on what the DB gives you. All right, so now we got a 5 on the route tree. What is that? That is going to be a 10-yard out. So how would you guys run a 10-yard out versus outside shade coverage? So now I know this may not look like a whole lot of outside shade, but you see where this DB's lined up. He's lined up kind of like bottom of the numbers, and you see where Cup's lined up top of the numbers. So it's not like a huge outside shade look, but he is shaded to the outside. So this is a common question that we get asked. How would I run a 10-yard out versus off man outside leverage? Whether it's a DB who's in zone, and you'll see this DB drop into zone, or whether it's like off man like we were just talking about. The main thing is just like the 5-yard out. Fellas, like I said, that just if the leverage changes, the concept of what you're trying to do does not change a whole lot. It's just a longer version of it. So we got outside shade. Let's play this full speed. Cooper Kupp comes out, and what is he doing? Attacking the inside shoulder, gets the DB to jump, and he's able to win. Because especially on like a 10-yard out, 15-yard out, 12-yard out, whatever route you guys have in your playbook, outside breaking route, what do I need to do? What do I need to give the quarterback? I got to give him space to throw me open. So I cannot, he's outside shade, I cannot attack his outside shoulder, because if I try to attack his outside shoulder, what's he going to do? He's going to widen, and then I'm going to naturally widen, break it off, but the QB ain't going to have space. And that DB is going to be right there. So we have to threaten the inside shoulder. So Cooper Kupp does exactly what Elijah Moore does. Instead of doing something I would call a crossover, which is what Elijah Moore did on that 5-yard out, he's doing a triple rocker step. So a rocker step is like a normal 1-2 at the top of the break. A triple step is like a 1-2-3. So he's really trying to fake the post here, and that attacks the inside shoulder. So he comes at him, he goes 1, that's his first step to the inside, 2 second step, 3 third step. And that looks like it's just a regular rocker step post route where he just goes in, out, runs the post. But instead he goes in, out, in, threatens the inside shoulder because that's what's going to get the DB to move. Because at the end of the day, even if it's off man, even if it's zone, he's not just going to let him go run a free route. He's going to try to get hands, try to get into his hip, or try to make a play on the ball. So that move will threaten him. But also, because we attacked inside shoulder, we gave the quarterback space. And you see how early this ball is coming out. This ball is in the air before Kupp has even turned his head. We have to make sure that I'm able to get separation and give that QB space. Because if I don't give him space and he throws it early like that, that DB could undercut it and pick it. Because he's expecting that room right there. And a lot of that's chemistry, obviously, and knowing where your guy's going to be. But fellas, you got to be a quarterback-friendly route runner. So 10-yard out against that off-man coverage where he's sitting right at 10, attack the inside shoulder. Do not try to attack his leverage. Now, do you have to do a triple rocker step? No, by no means do you have to do that. You could do just a regular rocker step where you hit him with 1 step outside, 2nd step inside, threaten the inside shoulder. Or you could just come out, self-fade, and run super hard at his inside shoulder, get him to open up, then bam, break it off. His whole responsibility in outside shade is to protect the outside. He doesn't want you to run the out. So we have to make it look as best I can like a post, like a dig, like he's doing his job, forcing us to his help, because that might get him to move, but it can also get us or leave us some room to accelerate. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Cooper Kupp attacking the inside shoulder and giving that triple rocker step to get that DB to bite. All right, so now 6 on the route tree is a dig. So big thing about a dig, especially when it's inside shade 5 yards off, you got to get comfortable restacking or throwing by. You got to have a plan at the top of the route. A dig route is one of those routes with my receivers that I work a ton on because I know every single offensive playbook has this route. And there are different ways to run it. Some offenses like you to run a basic, which is essentially you're dropping your hips at the break point. Some offenses like you to speed cut it where you're breaking off of 1 foot. Some offenses like the post dig where it's like you cut, take 2 steps to the post or 3 steps to the post maybe and break it off. So it's one of those things where it varies, but the concept of what you're trying to do is solely based on the DB, and that relatively stays the same. So let's play at full speed. So we got inside shade about 5 yards off, running like a 10-yard dig. On the goal line too. So Thielen attacks leverage, pushes back up vertical, gives a little 1-2 at the top of the break, and wins on this route. Now, I love it when I post this route, and everybody's always like, oh, he was locked up. Dude, you don't understand how hard it is to run a dig against a 5-yard inside shade coverage DB man on the goal line, and he all he needs is a step, bro. When you have an NFL quarterback throwing to you, I don't care if he's the 3rd stringer. All you need is a step. Those guys are incredibly talented, can put the ball wherever they want. So the littlest amount of separation can help you win on this route. And I love it when I show this clip and people will always critique and say, oh, he should have just attacked his leverage and took the inside release. Well, let's talk about why that doesn't work. Because when he's inside shade, number 1, he's not going to give up the inside. A disciplined DB won't. Everybody acts like every DB is just an idiot. A good DB will not give up the inside. So if you attack his leverage and your only plan is to run in front of him, guess what's going to happen? Because this is probably the full play concept. Because everybody can look good in one-on-ones when they do this. But a full play concept, guess what this is? It's probably Thielen right here. Let's say this is Thielen. He's running the dig. The opposite slot receiver is probably running a drag. So imagine if Thielen's got this DB right here, and he tries to attack him and run in front of his face. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to run into the drag, and then one defender can cover 2 routes. That is very bad from an offensive scheme perspective. The scheme is to try to be here. You got a DB. The scheme is to try to pull this DB out of there and maybe open up the drag. Or maybe we can win, and the quarterback can hit us. So you cannot force the release because the spacing will be off on the play. So what does he do? He attacks the leverage of the DB to hold him to the inside, gives him the free outside release, which is what will help him keep spacing on the route. And fellas, just because the goal line, this doesn't change a dang thing. If you're doing this in the middle of the field, it does not change a dang thing. You attack his leverage, so we get him to keep his leverage. Now, when I push back a vertical, I can do what? I can get skinny. I can go hip to hip. Now, imagine if this route was a little bit deeper, like 15 yards downfield, he'd be wide ass open because he could actually stretch the field. He could actually push vertical and get that DB trailing. You see how this is a little bit different than that like curl route that we ran. Same idea, he attacked his leverage, but Thielen actually got into the cushion. And when he pushes up vertical, what's he doing? He is hip to hip with this DB. So when he's hip to hip, he gets him on his back hip. He's trailing. So now Thielen restacks him. So when we can restack, I give him a move, I give him a head fake, I get that DB to hesitate. But now look at this. I gave the quarterback space to throw me open, and I gave myself space on the route to accelerate. This is not locked up. This is how you get separation on the goal line. In the goal line, how many times do you see receivers wide open when it's man-to-man? Not very often because they don't have a lot of space to work with. So if you can get a step, that's open, and that quarterback needs to put the ball there. Now, a lot of you might ask, okay, well, this is uncomfortable, right? I'm running a dig route with an outside release, but the whole theme of today is to not force anything. So if I'm running this dig route with an outside release and I got this DB who's inside shape, what if he plays it well? What if he's playing me and he's, instead of being here, he's 2 steps in front? I could put my right hand on the back of his shoulder, back of his hip, and throw him by and slip underneath to win. You got to have a plan at the top of the route. Separation is won and lost at the top of the route. Your press release keeps timing and it keeps spacing with that QB. So this is a great job by Thielen attacking him, pushing up vertical, giving that move, and then winning on that dig route. Textbook route running right there. Okay, so now we're going to get to a 7 on the route tree, which is a corner. So we're going to be talking about a corner versus outside shade press. So again, this should be actually pretty simple for you guys based off of the routes that we've talked about. So DB's outside shade. DBs will play outside shade when maybe it's cover 2. This is not cover 2 though. This is outside shade man. So he has safety help. So a DB will play outside shade on a receiver like Kupp who's out of the slot, because what do slot receivers like to run a lot of? Corners, outs, 5-yard outs. So they sit outside shade to expect that. But then some of you might say, well, why wouldn't they just run like a drag or a post? So they have safety help. So it's usually when they have safety help and they're expecting an outside route based on the formation or based on the wide receiver alignment. So as a wide receiver, what do you think you want to do on a corner route here? You want to attack him, so give him something to hold his leverage, take what he gives you, and top of the route, we're either restacking or going to throw by. We're taking what the DB gives me, because if I try to just square him up and attack him, what's he going to do? Keep his leverage. So then you're going to widen yourself out and not give the QB any space. Outside breaking routes, you have to give the quarterback space. So let's play at full speed. So he attacks him, takes the inside release, is able to restack, give a move, and then look at that, wins on that corner route. That is textbook right there from Cooper Kupp. Now, some of you might ask, okay, we attacked him, but what if the DB plays it well? What if instead of him being here, he's here? What would you do? Just like the dig. You would put your hand on the back of the shoulder, back of the hip, and you would throw by and slip underneath him. It's about having a plan up here, fellas. Have a plan at the top of the route and know what release will help you keep timing and keep spacing off that line. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by Cooper Kupp attacking his leverage, dipping that shoulder to restack, and then winning with that rocker step corner. All right, so now, same idea, going to an 8 on the route tree. So we got a bang 8 post. So bang 8 post or just a regular post, they're all 8s, it's all the same. Well, it's not all the same, but it's just terminology-wise. So we got inside shade, off-man coverage. DB is sitting right at like about 8 to 10 yards. He is inside shade. That is right where you are going to be breaking on the post. So this should actually be pretty simple based on what we've talked about with the 10-yard out, with the 5-yard out versus that outside shade look. So now I have an inside shade look, but I have an inside route like a post. So what do I think I need to do? You want to attack his outside shoulder now. This is where everybody loves to stem. Everybody loves to stem against inside shade. They'll angle those stem inside. They'll attack the DB's midline. And then guess what this DB does? Weaves to the inside because his goal is to protect the inside. Let me ask you this. When a DB was outside shade, what did he have to the inside? He had safety help, right? So when he's inside shade, do you think he has help outside? No, but the sideline would be considered as help. He doesn't have help inside. So his sole purpose in life is to protect the inside routes or just protect the inside. So let's watch what Bryant does here. Goes right at the outside shoulder, forces the hip flip, and then he's able to win. It's just like that diamond release from the very beginning. It's just a longer version of it, fellas. So he goes right at the outside shoulder, push, fade, get him to flip hips because we sold it. Hips and shoulders are committed to the fade. We're running full speed. We're running in full stride, and he's able to put the brakes on. Now, guess what? He's got plenty of space to run the post. Because think about this concept. Let's say the slot receiver is here, and let's say the outside receiver is here. He has a dig, and he has a post, right? So let's say you're running that post dig, or maybe let's say, for example, it's double post. Let's say it's double post. Forget about the dig. But you stem inside, and then you try to run the post. You have two routes way too close together. But if you attack his outside shoulder, that's how you get open, but also that is how you can create more spacing on the play. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Dez Bryant, pushing to the outside shoulder, understanding those route running principles that we cover. All right, so now we're going to be talking about a fade route versus off coverage. So how would you run a fade route versus off inside shade? No different than any other route that we've discovered versus inside shade, or that we've talked about versus inside shade that's outside breaking. I would consider a fade outside breaking. We need to make sure that we give the quarterback what to the outside? Space. But we also need to make sure I get separation. So Kyle Pitts does a great example of something we call a vertical set, which is like pretty much a hard cut to the inside, like a post fake to get you separation. So I like this against zone. I like this against inside shade off man. I like this against any type of off coverage that is head up or inside shade when you're running a fade route. But the main thing is you have to close the distance. So you see how Pitts, what he does here, he's running full speed. He's closing the cushion, just like everything that we have talked about. Outside breaking routes versus inside leverage, you want to attack his leverage. If you got an inside breaking route against inside leverage, you want to attack the outside shoulder. It's that simple, fellas. It's press, off man, catch technique. It's all pretty similar when it comes down to that. It's just based on the route and based on the coverage that you're seeing. So he attacks him, closes the distance. A lot of wide receivers will throw this vertical set, which is essentially a fake with your inside foot, like almost trying to sell a post to get this DB to crash. They'll do it with like 5 yards of space. So when they throw that fake and this DB jumps, you still got to get to here. So guess what that DB is going to do? He's going to recover because we didn't close the distance. But Pitts does a solid job of closing the space and throwing that vertical set with not enough room for the DB to recover. So now that we got him to bite, just a little hesitation is all it takes. I could go hip to hip. Some people call that getting skinny, and I can win on this route over the top. That is textbook right there from Kyle Pitts, and that is exactly how you want to run that fade route against off coverage. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by him attacking the leverage, getting into his cushion, stepping on those toes, and winning on that fade route versus off coverage. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I know this was a long video, so I appreciate everybody who stuck it out, watched the whole thing. We always appreciate the support from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like a full wide receiver gym and field training schedule for a full month, check out that very first link in the description below. You guys will get a ton of value out of our 4-week daily schedule with sets, reps, and examples of each exercise broken down for you. I'll see you guys next time.